Chapter 2 of the Immortality of the Soul. Though the body dies, and when it dies the soul dies not, it survives the body, and not only lives after it, but lives forever. It never dies. Though the body without the soul is dead, yet the soul without the body is not dead. When the body returns to the earth and dust from whence it sprang, the soul returns to God, the immediate author and giver of it. The body may be killed by men, but not the soul. No man has any power over it, none but God that made it. The soul is immortal. It is not capable of death, that is, in a natural and proper sense. It is capable of dying in a figurative sense, a moral or spiritual death, which is brought on by sin. But this lies not in the deprivation of the powers and faculties of it, but of its moral rectitude, righteousness, and holiness. And it is capable of eternal death, which is the destruction of it in hell. That is, not a destruction of its substance, but of its peace, joy, and happiness forever. When it is said the soul is immortal, it must be understood that it is so in its nature, and is not liable to death, either from anything within itself or without it, but not that it has such an immortality as God himself has, who only hath immortality. He has it of himself. Angels and souls of men have their immortality of him, who has made them immaterial and immortal spirits. His immortality is without beginning and any prior cause of it. Theirs has a beginning from God, the first cause of them. He is independent, theirs depend upon him, in whom they live and move and have their being. That the soul of men is immortal may be proved. First, from the consideration of the soul itself, its original nature, powers, and faculties. First, from the origin of it. It is not of men. It is not ex traduce, or by generation from parents, as has been proved elsewhere. What is born of flesh is flesh, and is not only carnal and sinful, but frail and mortal. All flesh is grass, withering, decaying, and corruptible, as that is. But the spirit or soul is of God. It is the very breath of God. It has a similarity to him, particularly in immortality. God breathed into man the breath of life, and he became a living soul, immortal and never dying. Genesis 2 verse 7. Elihu says, Job 33 verse 4, the breath of the Almighty hath given me life, a life that will never end. As the first man was made, so are his posterity. His body was formed out of the dust, and then a living, immortal soul was breathed into it. So the body of every man is first formed, and then the soul is created in it. Hence God is described as he that formeth the spirit of man within him. Zechariah 12 verse 1. As God is the former of the souls of men, so he is their supporter of them. He upholds their souls in life. As they have their being, their life from him, it is maintained by him, and souls of men are not dependent on their bodies, and therefore die not when they do, as they are independent of them in their operations, can think, reason, discourse, will, and nill without them. So they are in their being, and can exist and subsist without them. The most malicious and cruel persecutor can only kill the body, and after that they have no more than they can do. They cannot kill the soul. Luke 12 verse 4. They cannot pursue that any further. That returns to God that gave it. He could indeed annihilate it if he would, but that he does not do. Neither the souls of good men, who are after death, are under the altar calling for vengeance on their persecutors, nor the souls of bad men, who are in perpetual torment. Their worm of conscience never dies, but is always torturing them, and the fire of divine wrath in them is never quenched, of which they are always sensible, and therefore must be immortal and never die, or else the fire of its burning would not be everlasting, as they are said to be. Secondly, the immortality of the soul may be proved from the nature of the soul, which is 1. Spiritual, of the same nature with angels, who are made spirits, spiritual substances, and so die not. And such are the souls of men. Hebrews 12:9-23. Now as the souls of men are of the same nature with angels, and they die not, it may be concluded that the souls of men are immortal and die not. Psalm 104 verse 5, Luke 20 verse 36, 1 Corinthians 2 verse 11. 2. The soul of man is simple, unmixed and uncompounded. It is not composed of flesh, blood and bones, arteries, veins, etc., as the body. A spirit has none of these, nor flesh, which may be torn to pieces, nor blood, which may be let out and shed, and life expire, nor bones, which may be broken, and be the occasion of death, nor arteries and veins, which may be cut through, and life cease, nor is it as the body, made up of the 4 elements of fire, water, earth, and air, and capable of being resolved into the same again. 3. It is immaterial. Third, it is immaterial. It is not composed of matter and form, nor is it a material form, adduced out of the power of matter, as the souls of brutes, which die, go downward, and return to the earth. Matter is destitute of motion, and cannot move itself, whereas the soul of man, being moved, can move itself, as it appears in the thoughts, reasons, and discourses. This was Plato's argument for the immortality of the soul, that it can move the body at pleasure and influence to any action as to walk, sit, etc. Matter is incapable of thought, reasoning and discoursing, willing and nilling, as the soul is. Matter is divisible, discernible, may be cut to pieces. Not so the soul. It is out of reach of every slaughtering weapon. The sharp arrow cannot penetrate into it, nor the glittering spear pierce it, nor the 2-edged sword divide it. None of these, nor any other of the same nature, can touch it. 4. The soul has no contrary qualities, which, when one is predominant, threatens with destruction. It is neither hot nor cold, nor moist nor dry, neither hard nor tender. It has no heat in it, which may, as in the body, be increased to such a degree as in burning fevers, to dry it up like a potsherd and consume it, nor such moisture which may rise abundant and overflow it, as in a dropsy, and drown the fabric, nor has it any such tender parts which will not bear a blow, but be fatal to it, nor so hard as not to bend and become pliable to proper use and endanger the machine. 5. The soul of man is made after the image and in the likeness of God, which chiefly consists in that it bears a resemblance to the divine nature, being the breath of God. It has a likeness to him, and particularly in its immortality, and this is given by Alcmaeon as an argument for it. And so Plato, the soul is most like that which is divine, immortal, intangible, uniform, indissoluble, and always the same. Thirdly, the immortality of the soul may be proved from the powers and faculties of it, its understanding and will. 1. Its understanding. There is a spirit or soul in man, as Elihu says, Job 32:8, and the inspiration of the Almighty hath given them understanding, an intellective power and a faculty of understanding things, which distinguishes men from the brutes that perish, the horse, the mule, which have no understanding. It is by this God teaches men more than the beasts of the earth, and makes them wiser than the fowls of heaven. Psalm 32 verse 9 and Job 35 verse 11. 1. The understanding of man can take in and has knowledge of things spiritual and incorporeal, immaterial, incorruptible and eternal, which it would not be capable of if it was not of the same nature itself. The images of these things would not be pressed on it, nor would it be susceptible of them. It can reflect on its own thoughts and reasonings, and knows the things within itself, which none but God and that know. It has knowledge of angels, their nature, offices, services. It has knowledge of God himself, of his nature, perfections, ways, works. Nor is it any objection to it that it has knowledge of corporal things, and therefore must be corporal too, since these are things below it, and therefore within its reach. Whereas spiritual, incorporeal and immaterial substances would be above it, and not within its compass, unless it was a spiritual, immortal and immaterial substance also. Thus God and angels know corporal and material things, though they are incorporeal and immaterial.